Thank you. We got up to Amar Rav Yehuda, about 8 lines down.
See, 1 second before you start regarding the Metzia and Eretz Yisrael, nobody should use the cleaners, American driving cleaners on Mill Road. They were moisa to the government on the Chesed Center, and the Chesed Center has had to shut down now. So nobody should give them any business. They're chayas.
What does that mean? The one that picks up for me every week, Ramon, the Jewish guys, Howie Rosenberg?
The American driving cleaners on Mill Road. I don't know them. I'm not as nice as you. I don't know the cleaners so personally. I don't know if that's them. I have no idea.
Where are you getting the story from?
From the Israel Chesed Center, which I get on. I get emails from them.
Okay, this is the
Town of Hempstead shut him down this week.
Wow.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, yeah. So hopefully we gotta have Achtus too. Yeah. All right. So yeah. So weiter. So Amar Rav Yehuda. Yeah, Hakol. Yeah, you have it. Kufches Amar Aleph, about 8 lines down from the top. So a lot now. Tonight's daf basically is about Dina de Bar Metzia. Dina de Bar Metzia is plus a lot of other interesting things. But Dina de Bar Metzia is that neighbors have first dibs on land. Right? So Amar Rav Yehuda, Hakol le'igle gapa. Everyone is mechuyev to give towards the gapas of fence. Everyone has to pay towards the upkeep, maintenance of fences for security. Right? Vafilu miyasmi, even Yisaimim, meaning Yisaimim, obviously we don't want to be mechayev them anything more than they need to, but they also have to chip in. Our Rabbanon loy, but the Rabbanon don't have to. My time Rabbanon loy tzrichin netirusa, because Rabbanon don't need to be watched. Why? Because Rashi says Tairasai mishmarta, that the Torah watches them, like we say in the Bayasim, we say b'shachvacha tishmar alecha, that when they go to sleep, it's going to watch over you. So Mamela, Tamikacham don't need shmira, which again, so just because they themselves don't need shmira, meaning why don't they need to help out for the shmira of the city?
Yeah, why are they potter from the tzahal? I mean, from the common
Right.
That's a separate question later on. Why they're not don't have to be part of the tzahal.
I didn't mean tzahal. I meant this. the
it's the same thing. No, they're also potter from tax, right? Right. So I'm saying they're potter from taxes too, so they don't need. See, because it's interesting because if you're saying it's as a tax to the city, okay, so they're potter from taxing the city, from paying tax for the city. But to say that they're potter because they don't need nitirusa, but the rest of the city does, right? Or let's say a guy has his individual security around this house. So he's a rich guy, he has his own individual security. So he also doesn't have to chip into the city security.
And the Maxis a shekel goes that also the common thing? Are they potter from the mitzvah of Maxis a shekel?
No, because that's part of counting.
Okay. But what does it go for? It doesn't go for just because they want to make a census. It goes to the upkeep of the mikvahs and the roads. So how is that any different?
Oh, does the Maxer shekel?
Yeah.
Goes for Karbonos Tzibur.
Okay.
Everyone's a part of that by definition.
Okay. So then so why should they be how is that different? It's a target Tibur, isn't it? It's chiv on the tzibur, not
but they will put them taxes too. Taxes is also one, right? Tax is also a thing. No,
I don't know. Where do you see that potter from taxes? I mean, I don't mean here in America. Here in America, you have to have a tax exempt organization to be potter. Just because you call yourself a priest doesn't make you proud potter. Otherwise, I'd be potter.
right?
I thought you were a shaman. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, so okay, I don't whatever it is that they're potter. I don't know. I can't say I understand it so well. Fine. The karya de pasya, but to dig wells, to dig, for drinking, right? Then afilu bin rabbanon. Then take even from the rabbanon, because and avada from Yisaimim, because rabbanon also have to drink. But that's only if they don't go out in. Meaning people don't go. It's like nowadays, people don't actually go take care of anything themselves. They hire people, right? But if everybody goes and digs for the water themselves, like then the rabbanon don't have to go. The rabbanon labnei mefik b'achuzaninu. Rabbanon and amachuyev to go, and it's a genai. Rashi says it's a genai for them. Fine. So I'm Rav Yehuda. The karya denara, when you dig out a river, tatoi messiah eloi.
Why is different between this mitzvah, like Rahman saying it's a mitzvah, and building a sukkah? We say it's not a gnai, it's the making a mitzvah. Doing the mitzvah is the biggest covet for somebody.
Right, but that's because the sukkah itself is a mitzvah. Here, the water and the shmirah by itself is not a mitzvah.
I think that's what
right? That's what I think. But anyways, so okay, so they're saying a new thing now. The Karya Denaro, to dig out a river, Tatoi Misayelo, the people. So the way it worked is that the rivers went down the cities, and the different people, and the different people, they have upstream and then downstream, and everybody was nene from the river. So it's sometimes the river will get full of rocks and all those things. So the people that were downstream have to help the people that are upstream. Tatoi Messiah Eloi. That the bottom ones have to help the upper ones because they're also benefiting from it. But Eloi Messiah Tatoi, but the upper ones don't have to help the ones that are downstream because it has nothing to do with them. But with rainwater, meaning that the how do you call it? Drainage. The drainage ditches, right? Is that it's the opposite. The uppers, how does it go? The uppers have to help the lowers don't have to help the uppers. Meaning the basic rule is that if you're benefiting from it, so then you have to help out. But if you're not benefiting from it, then you don't have to help out. Right? If you have 5 gardens that are getting water from one mayan, and the mayan, something went wrong with the stream. Everybody has to help the top guy try and fix it. And then what comes out is that the bottom guy, because there's five fields, the bottom guy is helping all of them, and he also has to fix his own. And same thing with 5 yards, that all their water is draining into one river or one or drainage thing, and then the biv gets messed up. Everybody has to help the lower one. And kulan. So therefore you see that the elyaina is fixing all of them. Misakenes la'atzma is also being a sakin, is also being the sakin itself. Just going. Right. So I tell you like this, I had it I had it myself. Just when it was easy for me to understand this Gemara. Just if anybody knows where my house is and my mother's house is. So the way the sewage, for whatever reason, the great New York City, it went out to the beach 9th Street. The sewer went out to beach 9th Street, meaning it started from my neighbor between me and my mother, and then went to my yard, and then it always backed up into my neighbor's yard. So he's the bottom. He's the bottom of the run. Right? So when he had to fix it, we all had to chip in, even though we weren't getting any damage, because all the sewage was backing out to him. We were all benefiting from it. If it would have,
You mean your neighbor closer to Beach 9th, I guess.
No, my neighbor closer to my mother. He's at the
lower on the
bottom.
hill. It's a little bit of a hill.
I know what a hill is.
It's
He was at the lower point.
He's at the lower point, and it drained out through my yard, through my neighbor's yard, through Sulitz. Right? So, and when all our sewage ended up in his property.
What's the big deal? Just let it run down the street, just like the bungalow car.
We tried that for a bit, and then the Olam got fed up with it. But bottom line is we all had to chip in, because we were all benefiting from it. Had it happened to the one neighbor that was in the top of Sulitz, then we wouldn't have to help, because what does that have to do with us? Right? I hope that makes it clearer. But that's how you have to do it, depending on which way it's going. If it's rainwater, so then it's the opposite.
It is very murky for me.
Very good. Okay. Meaning, bottom line is, if the sewage goes, if you're benefiting, the one that's above you is benefiting from the damage that's happening to you, then you have to chip in. And if you're not benefiting from it, then you're not going to. Right. So that's what it is. Fine. Okay. So Amar Shmuel, Hi man, da eichsik barkas of the Nahara. So you have a guy, he's being machzik a field on the riverside, on the side of the river. Chatzifa Havi. So he had I'm sorry, a guy that buys a field that's mamish on the side of the river, then that's chutzpah. Chatzifa is a habit. And slukil lemasakina, but we don't kick him out. Meaning he's not doing the proper thing, right? Because why? Like we said in yesterday's daf, that you always need space on the side of the river in order to pull the ships. But the kokosvi parsoi. But nowadays that the parsoi who were in charge, konilach ad mali tzavari susimaya, they hold that you're allowed to buy land up until where the water will get to the neck of a horse. We also don't take him out, right? Meaning, because the government, now meaning according to halacha, you shouldn't be able to do it, but because the government holds that you're allowed to, so then Mela, those people are what they're gonna do is they're gonna build some sort of fences, right? And then Mela, there's gonna be some sort of space there, and then you don't have to worry about it. Okay, some review.
Is that a dina de malchus dina?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, because normally dina de malchus dina dina de malchus dina doesn't trump halacha.
Right. That's what I'm asking.
Here it sounds like it's being making the halacha more cooler.
Right. Is this just a Metzia thing? Because the way of people is to do as much as they can possibly get away with? So Mamela halacha has to stoke too?
No, I think what happened here is practically. I don't think that's
what I meant. The Metzia says yeah.
Yeah, because what happened is, what's going to happen is that if a guy, meaning somebody else who's bought this land, is going to come kick him out. So that, right? If somebody else bought it, meaning once the city allows you to buy land and settle land there, so then that's it. There's nothing more we could do. So why should he lose out?
Still a shtickle weird.
What do you mean? Why is it weird?
Because halacha says otherwise, because his neighbors are goyim and they're allowed to do it. So maybe we allow him to do it.
Yeah. I don't know. So that's why I understood it. No, meaning, yes, we allow them to do it because either way, they're going to lose. Right? Fine. So Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Hi man, the achzik beini achu beini shutfi. Right? So somebody who's machzik between brothers and between partners, meaning you have two brothers that have some land, and then there's a little bit of land in between. So a guy that goes and buys that land, chatzifa, he has chutzpah, but we don't knock him out of there, right? Because I mean, Ikar Din, he's not. There's nothing wrong with what he did, but it's a chutzpah because it's going to cause all sorts of problems. Yeah, for Rav Nachman, Nami is misalkina. Not only that, we knock him out. Meaning he's not only a chutzpah, but we knock him out. De bar mitzvah. But if you're going to say the dina de bar mitzvah, which means that you have to, the neighbor has first, right? So we don't knock him out, which means that Rav Nachman doesn't hold of dina de bar mitzvah, right? At least that's the way Rashi understands. Now, say even if he's
Dina de Marmetz is a deraisa or the Rabban? What is it?
So yeah, no, it's not a deraisa. It's not. There's no pasuk that talks about Dina de Marmetz. Dina bar mitzvah, as we're going to see in the Gemara, is because of Asisa Yosher Ba'atoiv. Right? It's just not Yashus. Right?
So does it not fall under the Geder Kedoshim Tiyu? Or it's
Maybe you get it from the next line. Let him read the next line.
No,
Maybe
it's not outside. Well, let's see how it goes. But it's a what Kedoshim. I don't know if you're going to call it a deraisa. Either way, then if it was a deraisa, Rav Nachman couldn't disagree unless he learns different shot in it. Right? But okay, let's see. So because of Dina the Mitzvah, we remove Mishum Shenemer Vasisa Yoshev Atoiv Be'enei Hashem. You should go Sisa Yoshev Atoiv. Right? So that's where the Din of the Bar Mitzvah comes from. Right? So I guess Rav Nachman doesn't hold. Right? That's where they hold that Din of the Mitzvah comes from. And Rav Nachman is going to say that that's not called Yashus. Yeah, it's fine. So Asa, now so this is how we get into the whole bar mitzvah. So Asa Imlach Bey. So if he comes and he asks, meaning if the buyer, we're going to see on Amud Beis that the din of bar mitzvah is totally on the buyer, not on the seller. Right? It's a very interesting thing. It's not the seller's achrayis, it's the buyer's achrayis. Right? Which we'll see as we go through. The Gemara is going to have tons of different questions and variables. Also, if the buyer came and asked the neighbor, he said, "Can I buy the land? Do you have a problem with it?" Amrale, Azel Isban. Or he said, "Can I go buy the field?" Amrale, Zil Zavan, and he said, "Go buy it." So meaning now he got permission. Right? He got permission that he could buy the field. Do they need a kinyan, meaning a kinyan of chalipin? Do they have to do with the yamalka, a pen, whatever it is? Ravina Amar Lo Tzarich L'Mikne Minei. He doesn't have to do a kinyan. Just a verbal agreement is fine. No, you need to actually do a kinyan. And if they don't do a kinyan, then he could back out. And the halacha is that they need to do a kinyan. Fine. So then now that we said you have to do a kinyan, so Eloi Konumine, he didn't do a kinyan, a yakar vizol, and if the price goes up or the price of the real estate goes down, the rishus say it goes in the rishus of the neighbor, because lamaisa, since there was no kinyan done, even though he verbally said that he could buy it, the neighbor said he could buy it, but since he didn't lamaisa do this kinyan, so therefore it doesn't work. And if the price goes up, price goes down, the neighbor could say, I want it for the original price. All right, again, he's talking about where the guy, he asked the neighbor, can I buy the field? You have a problem? The neighbor said, no problem. He buys it. But there was no kinyan done. The price goes through the roof. So the neighbor said, 1 second, I can make myself good money now. Right? Or if it goes down, I don't know why the neighbor would want to get involved if it goes down. If it goes down, I guess the buyer can say, hey, I don't want it. So I think, right? Yeah, okay, but that's part of the back and forth here. Zavan b'meya. Right, so let's say he bought it for 100 to shavi masan, and now it's worth 200 chazina. So now that meaning this is a new case now. If he bought it, the guy that wasn't, meaning not the neighbor did not buy it. He gave permission to this other guy to buy it. So he bought it. And he bought it for 100, Vishavi Masan, but really the land was worth 200. So then what? So Chazina, we have to look. If he would have, meaning this guy for whatever reason was giving it off at 50% off. Really it was to be 200, he would have sold it to 100 for anybody. So now if the neighbor wants it, he pays 100 and that's it. Because it was his right. But if he doesn't give the price, then Yavle Masan B'Shakale. Then he has to give the guy who bought the land 200, and then he takes it. Meaning, so because we have to assume that the reason why the seller gave it to this buyer for 100 is because he liked him, or something like that. So Zavan B'Masan B'Shavyameya. Let's say he bought it for 200, and it's only worth 100, meaning he ripped the guy off. So Zavamina. So what did they think? Meaning Matzi Amar Le, the neighbor could say to the buyer, "Let's kuni shadartik v'loy la'afsi." I didn't send you to do something bad for me. This is a classic thing with shlichus. I didn't say to do something bad for me. I sent you to be masakin things to me, right? So Mamela, he could say, well, I didn't ask you to go buy a land, and now I want the land. So Mamela, you messed me up. So therefore, it's done. That's what they thought. Okay, it's hard to understand because I don't understand. What? I mean, he let him have permission. So isn't he out of it now? I mean, it seems like. At what point in this whole sugya? At what point in this whole sugya does does this neighbor? How many times can he change his mind?
I gave a guy a right to buy, but I gave him permission to buy the field next to me, right? My field's worth 100, his worth 100. The guy paid $1 million for it, right? So all of a sudden, mine has a artificially inflated value. I want to sell my house, and then all of a sudden, everybody said, "Hey, because the Yanman paid $1 million, we're not going to give you $1 million. You're still worth just 100." But the going rate now changed. The value increased, or the shar increased. I don't want to say the value, but it's artificially increasing the value of the properties, and could cause. Interesting thing that's happened in Hawaii. the Japanese were coming in and buying property for crazy amounts where my mother lives. You know, the house is worth maybe $200,000-300,000. They're spending $1 million for, and 15. They want to tax everybody according to the inflated rate. So it causes a loss. So people like my mother, if they bought her house for $19,000, all of a sudden they wanted to raise their taxes, to $24,000 a year, $36,000 a year because Yemen paid $1 million for a bungalow, But it does change things. It changes it's an outlet for the neighbor because now the taxes go up.
Maybe your mother really liked the Catskills, Rachman. You don't know.
Yeah, it's new in the Catskills in Hawaii.
Well, no, but okay. But I'm saying, do we just get? Is there a time? Is there a time limit on this?
Seems like this is immediate. As soon as the guy bought it for 200, says, "What are you doing? You overpaid. I didn't send you to make it worse for me. I allowed you to buy it, but not to make it worse."
I'm saying, but also is he the shliach here?
Who, the buyer?
He never made him a shliach. He's just using that
Not a
lashon.
shliach.
Yeah, he's just using that lashon.
Yeah, no, it seems like here he made him into a shliach, but I'm not clear where that happened either in this whole sugi.
No, even
Okay.
without being a shliach.
What do you mean? He's not his
You can't
shliach.
ask me. There's din of the bar mitzvah that I'm the neighbor. I get first dibs. So this guy came to ask if he could buy it. I said yes. But the only reason I agreed to let him buy it was because it wouldn't make any trouble. As soon as you start making trouble by overpaying or underpaying, there's an issue here. I would never have allowed you to buy it. So the reshut that I gave you originally is contingent on you not making it worse for me.
Okay, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure how this works, to be honest with you. Yeah, so anyways, okay, let's see that. So that's what they thought. So there's no such thing as ainot to karkois, right? As we learned earlier on Hazov. So Mamel, since there's no ainot for karkois, the guy could have ripped you off and finished. That's the way it goes. If you were willing to pay, if he was willing to pay, so then that's what it is. Right? And that's it. There's no way around it. So it's a two-way street. Yeah. So Zovin lay now weiter. Zovin lay griva da Arab mitzvah nafse. If the seller sold him a little bit of land in middle of all his lands, right? Meaning, so we're afraid that they're scamming the system. So Chazina, let's see the whole case first, and then we'll go back. Yeah, Chazina and he easy is he. Is the land that he sold, is it better or worse? So if it is, then zvine. His sale is a sale, right? Meaning he wanted to sell him this little bit of land in the middle on Talmud base. And if not, Irume Kamairim, then they're pulling a scam. Right? Meaning if it's the same level land as anything else, so then we're not going to say that he did this, then we're going to say he did this on purpose and he didn't want to sell it. Meaning, if there's a little field in middle of, let's say a guy has a field like an acre, a 2-acre field, 2 acres by 2 acres, right? Then in the middle, he sells him a little strip of land, right? So, but the problem is that he doesn't have Dina de Bar Mitzvah. Yeah, you gotta have your head into how to scam somebody. Let's use my house as a mushal or my mother's house, yeah, right? So my mother wants to sell her house to somebody, but the problem is her neighbor wants to buy her house, and the neighbor says I have first dibs because I have Dina de Bar Mitzvah. So what my mother says she'll do is she'll sell the middle of her front yard, 5 feet by 5 feet. She'll sell it to Ichveis, to Naphtali Liner, right? Now Naphtali Liner owes that land. Now he is considered on the border, right? Because now he owns land bordering my mother's land. And then she could sell it to him. Right? Yeah. Right? You got what they're doing here?
Yeah.
It's a good scam. It's a good way around this. Right? So the Gemara is saying, well, let's see. If there's something particular about this land, it's either better or worse than the rest of my mother's lands. Okay, so then there was something unique about it, either for the good or for the bad. So Mamela, it makes sense that she would sell something like that. Right? But if not, so then we could just assume that the reason why she sold that land to Naphtali was to pull a Dina de Bar Metzia scam. Right? Fine. So yeah, so that's another din.
The closest thing we had on my block years ago, listen, before Nico bought Crane House, one Sunday morning I'm on the computer and I see on the New York Times real estate section, Kramer's house is for sale to the general public. So I got Harvey Oppenheim, they were both alive, Harvey, and then we ran down and got Phil Gold and we went to Kramer. We said, you better speak to this. He had a firm real estate agent from 5 towns. And he said, you better call her in a second, or we're going to tell her we're going to send 10 Schwarzes to her house to buy her house. You know, so he called her and she took it. And she took it down from there.
Taka. So okay, so that's yeah. So okay, if you were dealing with halacha, you might have been able to do this shtick. But I don't know if you would have had a different land there. So maybe yeah. Yeah, okay, so then there's some more stuff. Matana lesba mashum dina de bar mitzvah. A present doesn't have dina de bar mitzvah. Right? Meaning if you gave somebody a present of land, so then the neighbor can't say, oh, I want first dibs on the land, because it was a present, it's not a sale. Right? Amar Amemar. So Amemar said, but if the guy wrote to the person, oh, this is a present, and if somebody comes and takes it from you because there's a loan, etc., then on it, meaning he wants to guarantee it, then it doesn't work, because then it's not really a present, because that's another way to get around bar mitzvah, right? Meaning, I want to sell my house. My neighbor says, well, I want first dibs. But I say, no, I want to sell it to somebody else. So you know what I do? I give it to him as a matan. And then maybe 10 years from now, he'll pay me for it or something like that. So we say a matana, if I tell him that there's going to be a achrayas on the matana, it doesn't work. But if it's straight matana, then the neighbor can't have any complaints. If a guy selling everything, he's selling everything to one person, less bar mishum dina de bar mitzvah, then there's no bar mitzvah, meaning a guy selling all his properties in North Carolina and South Carolina, and also his house in Farakah. So in that case, since he's liquidating everything and he's selling it to one person, then the neighbor can't have any complaints. The Bailam Harishonim, and let's say he's selling it back to the original owners, less but Mishum Dina de Bar Mitzvah, there's no Dina de Bar Mitzvah either. Right? Why? Because he goes back to the original guy. Which, again, I don't know how far down the line do you say this? Right? Meaning, maybe should I go look through the city records and find out maybe the guy who bought it from him was somehow my neighbor or something like that? I don't know. I don't know how far back you go, but the Gemara is clearly saying you certainly go back one time. Zaban Mei Akum, if a guy
is the last one, the one where he sold all his nechasim, is that because of bar mitzvah? In other words, someone who buys one of my properties somewhere else is considered a bar mitzvah in a way more so than my actual neighbors.
What do you mean?
He's more of a negeva than my actual neighbors. He actually bought some of my property in South Carolina, so he's more negeva to me than my actual neighbors are. Maybe, I don't know if that's as far as I'm asking.
Well, I don't understand what you're asking.
Why does a bar mitzvah get first dibs?
What's the lumdus?
Yeah.
I think we're gonna the pasha the lumdus is because it's you don't want to have any problems with the new neighbors, right? Something like that. Well, we're actually the Gemara is about to say. Let's keep going.
Betsy, I mean,
Gershi.
Gershon, excuse me, I was thinking. Gershon, if Goldman Sachs buys your whole portfolio and then it doesn't make that they become a better neighbor than Mrs. Beta, you know what I mean? I'm still her neighbor, not Goldman Sachs, who just bought 14,000 properties.
Well, that's.
Well, is he saying this applies to an organization or a private person?
I don't
You're
know.
saying this
What's
also applies
wrong
to an organization.
What's wrong with an organization?
Like Goldman Sachs, they're not buying it to live in it or to do anything. They're buying it to flip.
So far, we didn't say it's to buy to live in. We didn't say
Right,
that.
right.
That's what I'm asking. If it's to
I
buy
know
to
what
live
you're. I know what you're asking. I understand what you're asking.
Yeah.
So you say, yeah, okay. I don't know. It doesn't seem to say that we differentiate, right? Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Weiter. Zavan may akum, zavan le akum. If he's selling to a guy, from a guy, I'm sorry, he's buying it from a guy, zavan le akum, or he sold it to a guy, right? Less b'mashum dina de bar mitzvah, then there's also no bar mitzvah. Why? Zavan may akum. If he bought it from a guy, the Amar lei, because he could say, Ari avri arvechi lach mi Metzia. I bought this from many. I had an opportunity to buy the land next to your house from a guy. You better be happy with that, Mr. Neighbor, because he may not have sold it to you. And then he might just have a guy next. You might just have a guy next to you. Right? Zavin le'akum. And if he sold the land to a guy, he also can't complain. Akum vade la bar vasisa yoshev atayvu, because the guy is not not in vasisa yoshev atayv. Which this is what I was saying before in Amar Aleph. It's very interesting. If you look at the Rashi, okay, I don't have to see the Rashi. Rashi says there is no din the bar mitzvah of a sisa v'yoshev atayv on the seller. It's only on the buyer, right? Because what does the buyer have to do with this, right? Right. So Mamela, it doesn't. I see.
What did the seller have to do with it? I mean,
So
right?
when I said buyer, I said the seller. I'm sorry. What does the seller have to do with this? Seller selling his field. It don't make a difference in who he sells it to, right? So it's only a din in the buyer. So Mamela, the buyer, if the buyer chooses to sell it to a guy, then he's allowed. He has that. He can do that. It's very interesting because this is where you get into a lot of trouble because the neighbor, like here, all of a sudden the Gemara is saying it's actually more makel to sell your land to a guy than to sell it to a yid, which is what everybody's screaming and yelling. What are you selling? What are you selling to why are you selling to a guy for? Right? The guy says, I don't want these headaches of the bar mitzvah people fighting with each other. So I'm just gonna sell it to a guy and finished. Right?
So it's like the pasuk doesn't even apply to the pasuk doesn't apply to the seller that he should be yasher. I mean, what? I don't know. That's kind of weird, isn't it? But I think the yasher b'toy bein the Hashem. This is. I don't see how does that pasuk only apply to the buyer, not the seller. I mean.
Hashem's the one who made the seller have to sell for whatever reason. It's always Hayosher b'nei Hashem.
Right. So okay, but it's interesting because isn't it Yashu to sell to a yid? I don't know. Is it Yashu to sell to a yid? But maybe not. Maybe it's not worth the headache. Ich weiß nicht.
Hashem's the one who made me sell. Can't have time on me for selling to whoever I can sell to.
Yeah. Anachanami. So yeah, I don't know. Okay, weiter. Shmusi. Yeah, now, but here's where it gets more complicated. But Shmusi vadim eshamsinale. But we do put him into chayrim. Adam makabel le kol einzi dasili machmase. Until he's makabel all the einzim that meaning the einzim that the neighbor is going to have because he sold it to a guy, right? Yeah, which meaning he can do it, but we're going to put him into chayrim until he pays for any damage. So if he sells it to a guy and the guy makes a nightclub out of the property and it's causing all sorts of damage to the neighbor, so even though we're saying he didn't have the din of the bar mitzvah, right? So meaning, I can't. It's hard to understand. We're saying that halachically he's okay. He's allowed to sell it to a guy, better than to sell it to a yid. But we're going to put him into chayrim. So why don't we just tell him that he can't do this, right? I don't know. Whatever. I'm just not understanding it. Fine, but Taisus, there's an important Taisus which also comes up a lot in the Hak. That little Taisus right to the right of the Gemara where we are. Mashamsina le'atam makabel dafka she Yisrael writes a likach bedomim shenosan ha'akum. That's dafka if the yid is willing to pay the money that the guy paid, right? But if the guy was willing to pay more money than the yid, then he doesn't have this issue, right? Here it says, so now the yid can say, listen, what should I do? The guy is willing to pay me more money. He's not mechuyev to take a loss, even though we had this in the Shavuos night shir, and we know halachically that a seller is mechuyev to sell to a yid even at a loss, right? So then, I don't know we don't know exactly what percentage. Or the same way you mechuyev to give parnasa to a yid to buy from a yid also has a chiyuv to give to a guy, up to a yid over a guy.
Is that a general halacha or for someone who is in the business of selling something, a supermarket? If I'm selling something, I have to sell it cheaper to a yid than to a guy.
Okay, what are you saying?
I'm selling something, a once in a blue moon sale. That then applies, or that's when I am a seller of things.
I think it applies.
Uh-huh.
Doesn't?
I don't know. I thought it was a parnasa thing. Stam sale is not a parnasa. General,
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure. Either way, Tais is clearly saying he's not mechuyev to take less money from a yid. Okay. Anyways, weiter mashkanta. So mashkanta, less b'mashum din de bar mitzvah. The mashkanta does not have a din of bar mitzvah, meaning if it's used as a mashkin, right? And so then the neighbor can't say, meaning the guy, he takes a loan out. He says, you're going to take my house as collateral. And then he says, you know what? I don't want to pay the loan back. Just keep my house. The neighbor can't say, no, I want the house. It doesn't work like that. The older people in Matamachsi said, my mashkanta. What does it mean a mashkin? What's the translation? The shchuna gabe. Because it stays by him. My nafkamina. And what's the difference? The din of the bar mitzvah. It's the din of the bar mitzvah makes all the difference. Right? That if it's a mashkin, then the neighbor cannot complain. Fine. Limkar, berachik v'ligal b'karov. Yeah. So now, if the owner is selling land far away, but he wants to do a swap. He wants to buy land. So he wants to sell land in a different city. I don't know if a different city or that city, whatever, far away from where he is. and now he wants to buy something close. He wants to sell a bad property, and he wants to be able to buy a nicer property. There's no dina de bar mitzvah, right? Meaning he can't start hacking around with the neighbor. The neighbor wants it, the neighbor doesn't want it. It's talking about an emergency situation. Something came up that he wants to be able to sell the land from far away to buy another land. So that's also no problem. Let's say he needs to sell the house to pay tax or to pay for food, for alimony, right? I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be for a divorce, but for his kids, ulakfura, and he needs it for a kaver. Less mushum dina bar mitzvah. Also, there's no dina bar mitzvah. Meaning, again, these are like emergency sales. The amri nahardai. As I say, lekargel mazanim ulakfura, for taxes and for food and for burying. Mazavninan beloy achrazasa. You sell. This is talking about yisaimim. So normally, when you're trying to liquidate property, so you have to you want to announce it, because you want to be able to get better bids for people. If you sell it right away to the first guy, so you might be making the Yisaimim lose out money. But if it's needed right away, so then you sell it right away. The Isha, if he sells the property to a woman or to Yisaimim or l'shutfi or to his shutvim, less mishum dina devar mitzvah, there's also no dina devar mitzvah. Why? So it's interesting, because why for a woman? Right? Because a woman, it's not easy for a woman to go buy property. Women are not in the business. I wonder if this halacha changes nowadays. Women are not normally in the business world. So if somebody's actually willing to handle with her, then that's it. Then she doesn't have to start offering it to the neighbor. Right? And Yisaimim the same thing, and Yeshutav is Yeshutav. So you have a right. Shchenei ha'ir v'shchenei sada. If you have a neighbor in the city or a neighbor in a different field, right? Now there's a lot of hacking in how to understand these things, but that's the pashut understanding. Shchenei ha'ir kaidrin, so then the shachan in the city comes first. Shachan v'tamud chacham. If you have a shachan and a tamud chacham kaidim, a tamud chacham goes first. Kara v'tamud chacham kaidim, the tamud chacham goes first, right? Now, I should have pointed this out before. There's a fascinating Rashi here, because Rashi understands this. This is not talking about dina de bar mitzvah. This is Stam talking. Who should you give first dibs on your property to? Right? So Rashi's learning that this is not dina de bar mitzvah. Look at this Rashi. It's a fascinating Rashi. Not out the lumdus of it, just the history of it. So again, Rashi's learning this Gemara. Taisus disagrees, but Rashi's learning this Gemara. It says, who comes first? You always want to take care. You take care of your neighbors in the city, or do you take care of your neighbors in the field? Right? So we're saying that the shchenei of the ear come first. Yeah, so Rashi says, if you look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 wide lines down in the Rashi. So after Rashi explains that, he says, Vani. See, but there's a dot there in my Rashi. 5 wide lines that says Vani loidik daktiba mipi Rabbeinu called Sarki. Right, I wasn't medaktik in this from my Rebbe so well. Vadhena pirashti de b'matzrin delay kama. We're talking about dina de b'mitzra. V'hashta loy nirali. And now I'm changing my mind. And then he goes through why with his proofs, right? So he said, basically, the way I understand the Rashi's saying, I didn't work on this sugya well enough. And now I'm changing my mind. I don't know what it has to do with his Rebbe. Maybe he's saying that I didn't listen to my Rebbe well enough. That's what he says. I can't say that that's what Rashi's saying. I looked in the Mesifta when they explained Rashi. I wasn't sure, but it sure sounds like that's what
That's
Rashi
what the words mean.
Yes,
My Rebbe said this, and I didn't look into it. But I think pshat is else, something else.
Yeah.
Now that he's looking into it, he agrees with his Rebbe or he disagrees with his Rebbe?
Disagree.
Now that he looked into it or before?
No, he says, I didn't look into, my Rebbe touched it like this. I didn't look into it, but this is what I think Pshat is.
After, did he look into it, or he didn't?
You're saying he just believed his Rebbe without questioning his Rebbe. Is that what you're saying?
Yep.
And now he's questioning his Rebbe.
Essentially, yeah.
All right, you can have guts to say that. I'm not going down that road.
I'm just touching Rashi.
Okay,
That's
good.
the
I don't know
literal
how to.
type.
Yes, I don't know how to. Okay, fine. Whatever it is, it's an interesting Rashi. It's an interesting Rashi at the minimum. Yeah, coming in a confusing sugya. Yeah. Okay, but either way, Rashi holds that these few shilas are not dina de bar mitzvah. This is stam neighborly shilas. Who has priority? Fine. Iboilu. So they asked the shilah. Shachen v'karav mai. If you have a neighbor or a relative, right? Who has kadima? The neighbor or the relative? Tashema. So toiv shachen karav me'ach rachot. So the pasuk says a close neighbor is better than a far brother. So Mamela, the parrots, what do you do with this? The neighbor is more important than the brother. Right? So
your brother's your neighbor.
What parrot? No, it said the neighbor comes first before.
Not if he's
So
your.
there's got to be other
brother's
Gemaras that say the opposite. There's got to be other things that say no.
I don't know what to tell you. Parrots, what are you saying?
When your brother is close or your brother is far away, even how close are you to your brother?
You just make sure your brother's your neighbor.
No, yeah. Well, that gets no. The shilas is your brother. Can the brother have first dibs on the property? So we're saying no. Give it to the neighbor. Right. That's what it's saying, no? Okay, whatever. Now, Perez, you should have asked better.
Love your neighbor.
Yeah, but no, should have asked better. Isn't it Tully and what the relationship with the neighbor is?
Well, if you hate your neighbor, you're not likely to sell it to him. Unless you're selling it to him at some exorbitant price. But then your brother will be happy too.
Okay. Whatever. All right. Yeah. Fine. Yeah, okay, fine. So let's do a little bit more. We'll try to finish to the 2 dots. Hani Zuzi, it's late. Okay, 10:53. Hani Zuzi Tavi. Yes, if you have Zuz, meaning again, this goes with the way coins work, bismanehem, is it worked based on weight. The coins didn't have a specific value, like a quarter and a nickel and a dime, etc. It didn't have that. It had it was based on how heavy the coins are. So some places heavy coins work better than light coins. So Hani Zuzi Tavi. If you have these good coins, Bahani Zuzi Tkuli, and you have coins that are very heavy, less pay mishum din the bar mitzvah, there's no din of bar mitzvah, right? Because you might want this guy. I mean, they're offering cash, so I don't know, cash, whatever you call it. So if he likes these coins better, then there's no bar mitzvah. Hani tzairi v'hani shari. If you have coins that are tied up, meaning he has to untie the coins. They kept coins like in a shmata. So if you had to untie it in order to see the coins, v'hani shari, these are untied. Less but mishum dina de bar mitzvah. There's no dina de bar mitzvah. Fine. Omar hazel v'achach v'aisi zuzi. Right. If he says I'm going to go be matriach and bring money, we don't wait. Meaning this, this always happens. This grata happened. Is grata now that I reminded, because one of my in a distant family of mine had this issue. They were selling a house, and the neighbor, and they offered it to the neighbor first, and Shiva Shagai, and he got turned down for one mortgage, and then another more, and then they just got fed up. They got fed up with waiting, so they just sold it to a guy. It became a big tumult. Like, why were you have to do it? But they gave this guy enough time. The guy kept saying, I'm getting the money. I'm getting the money. So here's the Beferish Gemara says, you don't have to wait, right? So Amar, but they still got into big trouble in the community, these people, because they didn't wait. But like, how long are you mechuyev to wait? I mean, they won and they didn't tire us. So clearly, I mean, it seems to be Beferish Gemara. Right? Amar Ezel I see Zuzi, but he said, I'm gonna go wait. I'm gonna bring money. Chazinon, he gavra the amid who see if he is a wealthy person. Dazul umaisi zuzi, and he can go bring him money. So natrinale, we wait for him. Viloi, lai natrinale, meaning does he have potential to have this or not? Yeah, if he has potential, good. If not, not. I just read a story today in the Reb Shmuel Auerbach book. It was he told the guy, take a mortgage, and the guy had no money. He put 1,000 shekel down for a 1.2 million shekel mortgage. The Reb Shmuel Auerbach said, take out the mortgage. The guy had to put down 1,000 shekel, and the check bounced. So the banker, they said, okay, you're not getting this mortgage. They went to Reb Shmuel Auerbach. Reb Shmuel Auerbach convinced him somehow to let him take the loan, and then by some miracle the guy got the money. But something wild like that. Anyways, weiter. If the land belongs to one person but the house belongs to another, right? So now, and you have who's gonna get to who? So Mari Ara Ma'akiv, Mari Aka Ma'akiv, Mari Bati, the one who owns the land can stop them from selling from the house. Meaning you have, back then I forgot, there was a name for this in real estate. The guy owns the property, and then the guy that owns the house. It's not railroaded. I don't know. I couldn't remember it. We had something similar a couple of days ago. But either way, one guy owns the house, one guy owns the yard. So the guy in the house says, I want to sell a house. So we're saying that the guy in the yard can stop him from doing that. But the one in the house cannot stop the person from the land. Right? Ara the chad, particularly the chad, the same Gemara. If the land belongs to one and the trees belong to another, Mari Dara, Matzi Makav, Amari de Kali. Mari de Kali, like Matzi Makav, Amari Dara. Fine. Ara Labati, Ara Lazara. If you have the guy from the land wants it to build a house, and the guy the other guy wants it to plant, right? Yoshev Adif, somebody who wants it for people to live is more important. But less than Mishum Dina de Metzia, you don't have Dina de Bar Mitzvah. If sick Mishunaisei, Arichva de Dikli. If there's rocks coming out or trees, and it's blocked the one land from the other. If somehow you could even fit in one furrow, one line of land, ispe mishum dina de bar mitzvah, then you have the dina de bar mitzvah. If not, less mishum dina de bar mitzvah, because they're considered two separate properties. One has nothing to do with the other. Hani dalid b'nei mitzrani. If you have 4 lands, people own 4 lands, right? Meaning, not there's one land in the middle, like most houses. I don't know, most houses have 3 lands around, right? Meaning me, if I wanted to, I have my left neighbor, my right neighbor, and my back neighbor. Usually the front neighbor is the street, right? But you have, so he's talking about where you have mamish 4 neighbors. The kadim chad minayo b'zavin, if one of them went and bought it, zvine, then it works. The ikulu asubade, but if all of them want to come, then palgule bakarnazal, you split it up in triangles, meaning each person gets 25. Each one gets 25%, meaning their whole border they get to keep. So in order to do it equal, you have to make it as a triangle. Okay, we'll stop here. I hope this was understandable. I mean, these are one of those Gemaras that was actually big geschmack to sit and learn it more be'i and instead of in an hour on a Motzei Shabbos. But okay, I hope at least we understood something. Okay, stop there. We'll say a Tillim.